So welcome to today's deep dive. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to explore a topic that honestly I think a lot of people just sort of take for granted when they walk past a jewelry store window.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, people see shiny things and they don't think about the millions of years of geology sitting right there.
Right, exactly. So for this deep dive, our mission is to basically take this huge stack of geological data, market trends and some company profiles, and really distill it down. We want to give you, the listener, the exact knowledge you need to understand the real value of these specific gems, and also exactly where and how to buy them safely.
Because it is a minefield out there if you don't know what you're doing.
It really is. So let's just set the scene here. I want you to imagine holding a stone that contains like the fire of a ruby, the deep purple of an amethyst, and then, the sea green of an emerald. But they're all flashing at the exact same time, depending on how the light hits it.
Yeah, the Australian opal. It's genuinely unlike anything else on Earth.
It is. And usually, right, when we talk about high-end gemstones, there's this underlying expectation of precision. Like if you look at a diamond or a sapphire, its structure is rigid.
Right.
It's predictable. You can categorize it perfectly.
Yeah, well, it's a very clean binary way of looking at geology, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because we like our luxury goods to be strictly defined.
We want to know exactly what we're paying for.
Exactly. But the moment you step into the world of Australian opals, that neat little categorization system just completely falls apart.
Yeah.
You are suddenly dealing with a geological landscape that basically defies almost all the standard rules of gemology.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the core difference between a traditional gemstone and an opal, it's entirely structural, right?
It is.
Like if we look at a diamond or a ruby, we're looking at something crystalline. So I like to visualize it like a perfectly built brick wall. Every single atom is stacked in this neat, repeating, predictable lattice. But opals are what geologists call amorphous.
Right, which essentially means they completely lack that strict, repeating internal structure.
Okay.
And the reason they lack it really comes down to what they are actually made of.
Yeah.
Which is, an opal is hydrated silica.
Hydrated, meaning water.
Literally silica in water, yeah. In fact, some opals can contain up to 21% water.
Wait, really? 21%?
Yeah, up to 21. Though, the gem quality stones you'd actually wear in jewelry, they usually sit somewhere between like 6 and 10%.
That is just wild to think about. You're walking around wearing a gemstone that is fundamentally made of trapped water?
It completely changes the physical nature of the stone. And because of that, that amorphous, water-rich structure, opals don't get their color the way other gems do.
Right, because usually it's impurities, yeah.
Exactly. Like a ruby is red because there are chromium impurities trapped inside its crystal lattice.
Okay.
And a sapphire is blue because of iron and titanium impurities. But a precious opal, it doesn't rely on chemical impurities at all. It relies purely on nanoscale physics.
Okay, this is the part from the research that completely blew my mind. If you look at an opal under like a scanning electron microscope, it is made up of billions of microscopic silica spheres.
Billions of them, yes.
So the best way I could visualize this is like a microscopic ball pit. You have all these round spheres stacked on top of each other, and between all those spheres are these tiny little gaps or voids.
That's a great analogy. Now imagine white light entering that microscopic ball pit.
Okay.
It hits those gaps. And because the silica spheres and the water-filled voids have different refractive indices,
right,
the light physically slows down, it bends, and it splits apart.
Okay, just to clarify for anyone who hasn't taken a physics class recently.
Sure.
When you say different refractive indices, you're talking about how light behaves when it moves from one medium to another, right? Like when you put a straw in a glass of water.
Yes, exactly.
And the strawlet's been right at the surface.
That is exactly the mechanism. Light travels at different speeds through the solid silica than it does through the water sitting in the voids. So as the white light hits this boundary, it fractures into its component colors.
Wow.
This is called diffraction. Essentially, the internal structure of the opal is acting like millions of microscopic prisms.
So it is literally splitting white light into a rainbow inside the stone.
Inside the stone, yes. And because these silica spheres are arranged in a three-dimensional grid, those newly split light waves, they sort of bounce around and crash into each other.
Right, like an echo chamber for light.
Exactly. And sometimes they cancel each other out, which we call destructive interference, but sometimes they amplify each other.
Constructive interference.
Right, and that massive amplification is what blasts those brilliant neon flashes of color back to your eye. In the gem world, that optical effect is known as the play of color.
Okay, let me push back on this for a second. If all opals are just made of these microscopic spheres in a ball pit bending light, why is it that when I look at a high-end jewelry catalog, an opal with bright red flashes is just insanely expensive and incredibly rare, but an opal that only flashes, say, blue or green is much more common?
Right.
Aren't they all just bending the same light?
It's a great question. The color you see isn't random. It is directly dictated by the exact physical diameter of those microscopic silica spheres.
The size of the balls in the ball pit.
Exactly. Small spheres, which are around 150 nanometers across, they create very tight gaps.
Okay.
And those small gaps can only diffract shorter wavelengths of light, which corresponds to the color blue.
Ah, I see. So the physical architecture of the stone strictly determines the wavelength.
Right. It's pure physics. So to get red light, which has a much longer wavelength, you need much larger silica spheres, specifically between 300 and 350 nanometers.
Which is more than double the size?
Right. And here's the catch with that. Nature is deeply chaotic. It is incredibly rare for random geological processes to produce unusually large spheres.
Because it just takes longer, or the conditions have to be perfect.
The conditions have to be absolutely perfect, and it's even rarer for those large spheres to settle into perfectly uniform, orderly grids over millions of years without being disturbed.
So when I see a flash of red in an opal, I am literally looking at a statistical anomaly. Like, the geology had to line up perfectly without any disturbances to grow those massive spheres.
It's a miracle of probability. Basically, the larger the sphere, the rarer the stone.
Wow. So to get these perfect microscopic spheres, you clearly need a very specific, undisturbed laboratory.
You do?
And it turns out that laboratory happens to be the Australian outback, which, geologically speaking, is just fascinating that Australia produces roughly 95% of the world's precious opals.
95%.
What exactly happened on that specific continent that didn't happen anywhere else?
Well, to understand that, we have to travel back a long way, about 100 million years to the Cretaceous period. Back then, a vast portion of Central Australia was completely underwater. It was covered by this shallow, cold inland sea known as the Eromanga Sea.
So the middle of the bone-dry outback today used to be a freezing ocean.
A freezing ocean filled with marine reptiles.
That's crazy.
Complete with plesiosaurs and, ancient marine life. But over millions of years, the global climate shifted and that massive inland sea slowly dried up.
Right.
As the water retreated, it left behind this colossal sedimentary basin, which we now call the Great Artesian Basin. But the drying process, it wasn't clean.
What do you mean by not clean?
Well, it created highly acidic groundwater that essentially chewed through the surrounding sandstone, chemically dissolving the silica within it.
Oh, wow. Creating a kind of liquid silica soup.
Exactly. A thick, silica-rich gel. And as the landscape continued to dry and bake under the hot Australian sun, the water table dropped. So that silica gel seeped down into every crack, every fissure, and every empty void it could find deep in the earth. Over millennia, the water in that gel evaporated, and the silica slowly hardened into the microscopic spheres we just talked about.
And it wasn't just filling random cracks in rocks either. Like, this is another crazy detail from the sources. Miners out there have literally found fossils of ancient sea creatures, like the plesiosaurs we just mentioned, where the original bones completely dissolved away, leaving a bone-shaped cavity in the earth.
Yes.
And then the silica gel flowed into that cavity and hardened. So miners are pulling perfectly shaped 100-million-year-old dinosaur bones out of the dirt, but the entire thing has turned into solid, flashing, precious opal.
Isn't that incredible? Opalized fossils are arguably one of the most spectacular phenomena in all of Earth science.
I would love to see one of those in person.
Oh, they're breathtaking.
Yeah.
It's just a perfect illustration of how this silica gel operated, just creeping into any available void before slowly solidifying into a gemstone.
Okay, so as a prospective buyer, right? Let's put on our buyer's hat.
Sure.
Looking at this incredible history and the nanoscale physics, the market itself can still feel a bit overwhelming. Because I look at a catalog, and there are several distinct categories of Australian opals, and they look entirely different from one another.
Very different, yeah.
So what does this all mean? What is the actual difference between the main types someone would encounter?
Well, knowing the categories is crucial because it dictates both the aesthetic of the jewelry and its overall value. So let's start at the top. The absolute pinnacle of the market is the black opal.
Okay.
These are the rarest, most valuable opals on Earth. and they're almost exclusively found in a tiny mining town called Lightning Ridge in New South Wales.
Now, just to clarify for the listeners, the term black opal doesn't mean the flashing colors are black, right?
No, not at all.
Oh.
The colors are incredibly vibrant. The black refers to the body tone.
Okay.
So the background or the base of the stone, which the miners refer to as the potch.
The potch.
Yeah, P-O-T-C-H. In a black opal, that background stone is dark gray or jet black. And because the background is dark, it acts like a canvas that absorbs all the stray light.
Ah, I see.
Which forces those neon flashes of red, blue, and green to just pop with this incredible aggressive intensity.
It's like watching fireworks against a midnight sky instead of a cloudy afternoon. Like the contrast is what makes the color explode.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. Yes, exactly. So moving down the list, you have the Boulder opal.
Okay, Boulder opal.
Which is mostly found in the state of Queensland. Remember how we said that silica gel filled cracks in the earth?
Right.
Well, in the case of Boulder opals, the gel filled incredibly thin cracks inside massive, heavy ironstone boulders.
Oh, so the veins of opal are trapped inside this super hard rock.
Right. And because the opal vein inside the rock is so incredibly thin, cutters can't safely extract just the opal itself without breaking it.
Oh, it would just shatter.
Exactly. So what they do is they cut the stone, leaving the natural brown ironstone attached to the back.
Okay, so you get half opal, half rock.
Basically. It gives the gem this incredibly rustic, earthy look from the side. And as a bonus, that ironstone acts as a sort of natural backing, giving the Boulder opal incredible durability compared to other types.
That makes a lot of sense. So then we have what most people probably picture when they just hear the word opal, which is the white or light opal.
Right, these are the classics. They primarily come from Coober Pedy in South Australia, which, side note, is a fascinating place on its own.
Really? Why is that?
Well, the desert heat is so extreme out there that a huge portion of the town's population actually lives in underground dugouts.
Wait, they live underground?
Yeah, whole homes carved into the earth to escape the sun.
That is wild.
It really is. And Coober Pedy produces about 85% of the world's opals. So white opals have a milky, pale background.
Right.
The play of color is still stunning, but it's softer. It's more pastel because it lacks that dark, contrasting canvas behind it.
Okay, that makes sense. And finally, there's the crystal opal, which just seems to completely defy the look of the other three.
Yeah, crystal opals are defined by their transparency. Light passes right through the body of the stone.
Like glass.
Very much like glass. So when you look at one, the flashes of color don't look like they're sitting on a background. They look like they're suspended in midair, floating inside a clear drop of water.
Wow. That really paints a clear picture of the opal landscape. But opals aren't the only geological anomaly hiding in Australia.
No, they certainly aren't.
Right, because while opals are this incredible example of amorphous, water-filled chaos, Australia is also home to a gemstone where the strict, rigid rules of crystalline geology were just violently broken.
Oh, yes.
I am talking about the Argyle pink diamond.
Right. If opals are a marvel of the amorphous world, pink diamonds are a true marvel of the crystalline world. They are among the rarest forms of fine jewelry on the planet.
And unlike opals, they are crystalline. But their pink hue is an absolute geological mystery, isn't it?
It is.
Because don't diamonds usually get their color from the chemical impurities we talked about earlier? Like a yellow diamond gets its color from nitrogen and a blue diamond gets it from boron.
Usually, yes. But pure pink diamonds have virtually no chemical impurities in them at all.
Wait, none?
None. The pink color isn't chemical, it's entirely structural.
How does that even happen?
Well, millions of years ago, intense heat and just unimaginable tectonic pressure deep within the earth physically warped the diamond's molecular lattice. It's a process called plastic deformation.
Plastic deformation.
Right. The extreme pressure warped the crystal structure just enough to alter how it absorbs and reflects light, turning it pink. But remarkably, the pressure wasn't quite enough to shatter the diamond entirely.
Imagine the immense, planetary force required to warp the hardest natural substance on Earth without breaking it.
It's staggering.
And because of those highly specific tectonic conditions, these diamonds were sourced almost exclusively from one single location, right? The Argyle mine in the remote Kimberley region of Western Australia.
Yes.
But here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, this is the critical reality for anyone looking at this market today. The Argyle mine permanently closed in 2020.
Permanently, yes. And this fundamentally alters the economics of pink diamonds.
I can imagine.
The Argyle mine produced over 90% of the global supply of pink diamonds. With its closure, The primary tap for these gems has just been turned off.
So there's just no more.
The supply is now strictly finite. The earth is simply not offering up any more of them.
So as a buyer, you're no longer just looking at a beautiful pair of stud earrings or a pendant. You're looking at a rapidly appreciating financial asset.
Absolutely. They have transitioned from just luxury jewelry into serious investment vehicles and heirloom pieces to be vaulted and passed down.
Because the scarcity principle here is absolute. The demand continues to climb globally, while the available inventory only shrinks as pieces disappear into private collections. Which brings us to the most practical and frankly the most daunting part of this deep dive. Knowing how rare and valuable these stones are, both the opals and the pink diamonds, it's fascinating. But if I am a prospective buyer, I am terrified of getting scammed.
No, and you should be.
Right, because the market is absolutely flooded with synthetic stones, lab-grown fakes, and cheap composites like doublets and triplets.
It is a total minefield for the uneducated buyer. Take a doublet, for instance. It's a very thin slice of a real light opal that has been glued to a dark plastic or ironstone backing.
Glued, okay.
Yeah, the dark backing makes the colors pop, so it mimics the look of a highly valuable, solid black opal. And to the untrained eye, it looks spectacular.
But it's not.
No, its actual intrinsic value is a fraction of a solid stone.
And then you have completely synthetic opals grown in a laboratory that share the same chemical properties but were made in a matter of months, not millions of years.
Right.
So how does a buyer navigate this? How do I safely buy one of these?
You have to treat it like buying fine art. You cannot just walk into a random tourist shop on the street and drop thousands of dollars.
Right.
You need a broker that operates with the authority of a gemological institution. A perfect case study for the kind of infrastructure you should be demanding is Volley Jewellery.
Vol Jewelry. V-O-L-L-E.
Exactly. You can find them at volleyjewellery.com. They are a family-owned Australian business established in 1999, and they operate out of these grand heritage-listed buildings in Sydney.
Oh, nice.
One is at 149 York Street, and they have another one right inside the iconic Queen Victoria building.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second here. Say I want to save a few dollars. I bypass the high-end showrooms. I buy a loose, authenticated Australian opal online somewhere, and then I just take it to my local jeweler down the street to have it set into a custom ring.
It is a very common strategy.
Yeah.
And it is almost always a terrible idea.
Really? Why? A skilled jeweler sets diamonds all day long.
Because Vol and any serious opal dealer highly discourages this practice because of the sheer incompatibility of the stone with standard jewelry making techniques. Opals are not diamonds.
Right, because of the water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Remember, they contain water. On the Mohs hardness scale, where a diamond is a perfect 10, an opal sits around a 5.5 to 6.5.
Oh, that's pretty soft.
They are incredibly delicate. Setting an opal requires highly specialized, localized knowledge. For example, if you buy a Boulder opal, the ironstone backing left by the cutter is often naturally undulating and uneven.
It's bumpy.
Very bumpy. So if a local jeweler who is used to setting perfectly symmetrical machine-cut diamonds tries to clamp standard metal prongs down onto an uneven Boulder opal,
Oh, no.
yeah, they will apply uneven pressure and instantly crack the stone in half.
Ouch.
It happens all the time. At a specialized institution like Vol, they don't treat the stone and the setting as two separate problems. They design the stone and the setting as a single cohesive unit from day one.
Okay, that makes sense. Their artisans actually understand the exact physical vulnerabilities of Australian opals.
Precisely.
Okay, so the craftsmanship is specialized. But what about the authenticity? If I walk into their flagship store on York Street, what gives their jewelry weight in a market full of fakes? I mean, anyone can print a certificate of authenticity on a fancy piece of paper.
That is exactly the right level of skepticism to have. The difference lies in the accreditation behind the paper.
Yeah.
At Vol, they employ in-house certified gemologists and diamond graders.
Okay.
Their management team are active members of the Gemological Association of Australia, the GAA, and the Jewelers Association of Australia, the JAA.
So they're held to the ethical and technical gold standards of the Australian industry.
Precisely. For an Argyle pink diamond, that certification documents the stone's origin directly back to the now closed Argyle mine, which is the entire basis of its investment value.
Right, because if you can't prove it's from Argyle, it's just a pink diamond.
Exactly. And for an opal, that certificate is a legally binding guarantee that you are buying a natural solid stone shaped by the earth, not a synthetic or a glued-together doublet.
That's huge, because buying high-end jewelry can often feel deeply intimidating. You walk into a showroom, the lighting is intense, the prices are sometimes hidden, and the salespeople swoop in.
It was stressful.
But an operation like Vol seems built around removing that friction entirely. They actually run interactive educational presentations for their clients.
Yes, they do. They recognize that an educated buyer is their best client. They'll sit down with you and explain the difference between a 150 nanometer silica sphere and a 300 nanometer one.
Like we just did.
Exactly. They explain body tone, tectonic pressure, all of it. And remarkably, because they cater to such a massive global clientele, tourists and international investors flying into Sydney, their staff speaks over 10 different languages.
Now, that is a massive operational advantage. If you're traveling from overseas to invest in a piece of Australian history, being able to discuss the highly complex, nuanced physics of a gemstone in your native language removes a huge barrier.
It totally takes the anxiety out of the transaction. You can literally walk in with zero geological knowledge, speak to a GAA-certified expert in your own language, receive a comprehensive crash course in gemology, and walk out with an authenticated piece of the Earth's history perfectly set to last a lifetime.
Which really brings us to the underlying appeal of this whole industry, because whether you're drawn to the microscopic light-bending spheres of a lightning-ridge black opal, or, the extreme, violently warped crystal structure of an Argyle pink diamond, you're ultimately buying more than just a beautiful accessory. You are connecting with a very specific, irreplicable moment in the Earth's deep history.
You are. And if we want to talk about deep history, there is one final detail from the research regarding opals that completely changes the scale of what we're talking about here.
Okay, what's that?
Well, we naturally think of opals as an earthly treasure, right? We discussed the Great Artesian Basin, the Eromanga Sea, and that massive ancient acidic weathering process that dissolved the sandstone and created the silica gel.
Right, the unique conditions of the Australian outback.
Right, well, that specific geological weathering process is incredibly rare on our planet. But recently, satellite spectrometers scanning the surface of another planet picked up almost the exact same geological and chemical signatures.
Wait, what? They found evidence of the same opal-forming process on another planet?
Yes. They found the signature of hydrated silica on the surface of Mars. Mars. The arid, rusty desert of the Australian outback is currently our best earthly analog for the Martian surface.
That is insane.
The same acidic weathering process that created the black opals of Lightning Ridge appears to have happened millions of miles away on Mars.
That completely changes how I look at these stones. Like, the next time you hold an Australian opal and watch that neon fire flash across the surface, consider that you aren't just looking at the geological history of Earth. You are holding a physical representation of the exact same process that once occurred millions of years ago on the red planet.
It really forces you to respect the sheer scale of the physics sitting on your finger.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Well, that is definitely something to mull over the next time you are standing at the jewelry counter. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.